A Shreveport police officer gunned down.
When a servant who has taken an oath and committed their life to protecting others is violently taken from us, we all collectively feel the pain of that loss.
As the search for her killer continues, those who knew Officer Payne mourn and remember.
Fun, outgoing, loving person, because that's who she was.
Good evening and thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Dan Jovic.
And I'm Jackie Jovic. It's a day of tragedy and steadfast investigating for the Shreveport Police Department after they lose one of their own. Officer Chatéri Payne was killed last night on Midway Avenue.
Today, the police chief addressed the public, sharing specifics about what happened. NBC6's Alexander Meacham brings us the latest. Alex.
On the evening of January 9, 2019, Officer Chatéri Payne, a recently graduated rookie with the Shreveport Police Department, was preparing for her night shift when gunfire erupted outside her home. She was only 22, a mother and a young officer just beginning her career, yet that night would end her life and ignite a citywide investigation. Initial reports were conflicting. Her boyfriend, Tre'Veon Anderson, and associates, including Lawrence Pierre II and Glenn Frierson, were all questioned as investigators struggled to piece together the events.
Well, Glenn Frierson, one of the three men indicted in the January death of Shreveport police officer Chatéri Payne, was scheduled to be arraigned today, but federal charges that he is facing prevented that appearance. He, Tre'Veon Anderson, and Lawrence Pierre are charged in Officer Payne's murder. But in February, Frierson was indicted on federal drug and firearms charges. Anderson and Pierre pleaded not guilty in April. A written order will have to be filed to get Frierson into court.
Forensic evidence, witness testimonies, and digital communications revealed a complex network of relationships, planning, and betrayal. As law enforcement worked to uncover the truth, the case exposed how trust could be weaponized, how ambition and relationships intersected with danger, and how one tragic night would lead to arrests, a high-profile trial, and sentences that reflected the severity of the crime. Every case starts with evidence and ends with truth. We examine facts, not theories, details, not drama. This is Sunday Crime, where investigations speak for themselves. Subscribe now and stay updated as we uncover the facts behind every case. Chatéri Payne was born and raised in Shreveport, Louisiana. She grew up in a stable household and was known for her dedication to academics and athletics from a young age. While attending Captain Shreve High School, Payne was an active participant in extracurricular activities and gained recognition as a track athlete. Her discipline and competitive nature on the track mirrored her approach to challenges in other areas of life. Friends and classmates described her as determined, goal-oriented, and capable of balancing her commitments effectively. Payne's decision to pursue a career in law enforcement stemmed from a desire to serve her community and pursue a profession that combined discipline with public responsibility. After high school, she enrolled in the Police and Fire Training Academy in Shreveport. Her time in the academy involved rigorous physical training, instruction in law enforcement procedures, firearms handling, emergency response, and ethics training. Payne graduated in late 2018, earning her place as a rookie officer with the Shreveport Police Department. Upon graduation, she expressed satisfaction in achieving a lifelong goal and shared her professional aspirations with peers and family, highlighting her commitment to the role and the responsibilities it entailed. Payne was in a relationship and had a young daughter. She balanced motherhood with her professional obligations, ensuring that her child's needs were prioritized alongside her duties as a police officer. Her daily routine included preparing for shifts, maintaining her residence, and fulfilling family responsibilities. Within her community, she was known as a reliable and disciplined individual. Colleagues in the police department described her as motivated, attentive, and conscientious, while neighbors noted her involvement in local activities and her approachable demeanor. On January 9, 2019, Chatéri Payne was preparing for her scheduled night shift. She had completed her pre-shift routine, including uniform preparation, personal hygiene, and organizing her necessary equipment. At the time, Payne resided at a home on Midway Avenue in Shreveport with her child and partner. The property was a single-family residence in a residential neighborhood, providing a degree of privacy and security. Shortly before leaving for duty, Payne was shot outside her home. The attack occurred in the early evening, shortly before her shift was set to begin. The timing suggested a planned action, as she was in uniform and preparing to leave. A 911 call was made immediately upon discovery of the incident, reporting an active shooting and requesting emergency medical response. Law enforcement officers arrived promptly, securing the scene and assessing any immediate threats. Following the shooting, Payne was transported to a local hospital. Medical personnel attempted to stabilize her, but she succumbed to her injuries. Her death was officially confirmed at the hospital. Witnesses included family members present at the home who provided initial accounts to responding officers. Their observations played a critical role in guiding the early stages of the investigation. Police officers secured the Midway Avenue residence, establishing perimeters and restricting access. Forensic teams collected physical evidence, including ballistic materials, fingerprints, and other trace evidence, to establish the sequence of events and identify potential suspects. Investigators conducted interviews with witnesses and neighbors. Initial statements contained inconsistencies, particularly regarding the identity and behavior of individuals present during the shooting. Investigators noted these discrepancies as points requiring further verification. The Shreveport Police Department issued limited public statements confirming the death of Officer Payne while withholding specific details of the ongoing investigation. Officials emphasized the seriousness of the incident and pledged thorough investigation. Investigators began identifying potential leads based on evidence, witness statements, and digital communications. Attention was focused on individuals known to have relationships with Payne or connections to the residence. 3 individuals emerged as primary suspects. Tre'Veon Anderson, Payne's boyfriend and the father of her child, became a focal point due to his proximity to the incident. Lawrence Pierre II, an associate connected to Anderson, was identified based on investigative leads and communication patterns. Frierson, another individual implicated through evidence collected by investigators, was linked to the scene via interactions with the other suspects. Law enforcement obtained arrest warrants, charging the suspects with second-degree murder and conspiracy to commit second-degree murder.
Well, Frierson, one of the 3 men indicted in the January death of Shreveport police officer Chatéri Payne, was scheduled to be arraigned today, but federal charges that he is facing prevented that appearance. He, Tre'Veon Anderson, and Lawrence Pierre are charged in Officer Payne's murder. But in February, Frierson was indicted on federal drug and firearms charges. Anderson and Pierre pleaded not guilty in April. A written order will have to be filed to get Frierson into court.
Legal authorities cited the combination of physical evidence, witness statements, and digital communications in filing charges. Suspects were brought before a court for bond hearings. The judicial process ensured that individuals were detained while awaiting pre-trial proceedings and that initial legal arguments were established. Evidence recovered included firearms, ballistic reports, and forensic materials collected at and near the scene. This evidence helped reconstruct the events and identify roles played by each individual. Conflicting accounts regarding participation in the shooting were provided. Interviews with the suspects produced contradictory narratives, requiring investigators to cross-reference statements against evidence. Text messages and social media interactions among the suspects were reviewed. These communications indicated planning and coordination that supported charges of conspiracy. Piecing together the timeline of events was complicated by inconsistent statements, delayed reporting of movements, and the involvement of multiple individuals with overlapping actions during the incident. The collected physical evidence, witness statements, and digital communications were presented to a grand jury. The evidence established a probable cause to pursue criminal charges. All 3 suspects were indicted for their respective roles in the shooting. Charges were formalized, enabling prosecution to proceed with trial preparations. Prosecutors and defense attorneys began pre-trial activities, filing motions and establishing case strategies. Key legal arguments centered on the coordination of the suspects and the extent of their involvement.
Lawrence Pierre entered a guilty plea in exchange for testimony against co-defendants. His cooperation provided clarity on actions taken and supported prosecution strategies. Pierre's sentencing reflected the severity of his involvement, though adjusted due to his cooperation with authorities. Pre-trial proceedings included motions to exclude certain evidence, challenges to witness credibility, and deliberation over digital and forensic material. These steps were critical in defining the scope of evidence admissible during trial. The trial of Tre'Veon Anderson marked the most significant phase in the investigation into the death of Officer Chatéri Payne. Anderson, the boyfriend of the slain officer and father of her young daughter, faced charges of second-degree murder and conspiracy related to the shooting that occurred outside Payne's residence on the evening of January 9, 2019. The prosecution's case was built on a combination of forensic evidence, witness testimony, and corroborated digital communications. During the proceedings, the prosecution outlined the sequence of events leading to Payne's death, emphasizing the planning and execution of the shooting. Forensic investigators presented ballistic reports confirming that the bullets recovered from the scene matched the firearm linked to Anderson. Crime scene photographs and laboratory findings illustrated the trajectory of the gunfire and the positioning of the victim and suspects at the time of the incident. Investigators described how evidence collected contradicted initial witness accounts, including statements made by Anderson and other associates. Witness testimonies played a critical role. Lawrence Pierre, an associate of Anderson, entered a plea deal in exchange for his cooperation and testified that Anderson had orchestrated the shooting. Pierre detailed conversations and interactions leading up to the incident, including discussions about a firearm and the movement of individuals involved in the planning. Additional witnesses, including neighbors and individuals familiar with the relationships between the parties, corroborated parts of Pierre's account, providing a more complete picture of the events. The defense strategy focused on challenging the prosecution's narrative and questioning the reliability of the testimony provided by cooperating witnesses. Defense attorneys argued that the physical evidence did not definitively place Anderson at the scene at the exact moment of the shooting. They highlighted inconsistencies in Pierre's statements and suggested alternative interpretations of text messages and other communications between the suspects. The defense also attempted to introduce questions of motive, arguing that the complex relationships between the victim and suspects created circumstances that could not be definitively attributed to Anderson alone. After several days of presenting evidence, witnesses, and expert analysis, the case moved to jury deliberation. Jurors reviewed the forensic reports, witness testimonies, and digital evidence in detail. They assessed the credibility of each account, weighing the corroborating physical evidence against any inconsistencies. Following thorough deliberation, the jury reached a unanimous decision, finding Anderson guilty of second-degree murder and conspiracy. The verdict represented the culmination of years of investigative work and legal proceedings, and established the culpability of Anderson in the death of Officer Payne. Following the verdict, the court proceeded with sentencing. Tre'Veon Anderson received a life sentence for second-degree murder, with additional consecutive years imposed for the conspiracy charge. The sentencing reflected the severity of the crime and the judicial system's determination to hold the perpetrator fully accountable. Glenn Frierson, another individual implicated in the broader investigation through firearm possession and other criminal activities, faced separate legal proceedings. He was sentenced for related charges, including firearm violations and drug-related offenses connected to the events surrounding Payne's death. Pierre, who had cooperated with authorities and provided testimony critical to securing Anderson's conviction, received a life sentence as part of a plea agreement. Pierre's cooperation underscored the role of prosecutorial strategy in navigating complex cases involving multiple actors. The legal outcomes illustrated a coordinated effort by law enforcement and the judicial system to address the murder comprehensively. Through the combination of investigation, evidence presentation, witness cooperation, and judicial oversight, the justice system was able to clarify responsibility, assign appropriate consequences, and close a case that had generated significant public interest. Statements from Payne's family highlighted the loss of a young officer whose life and career were cut short. Family members expressed gratitude for the legal system's efforts to secure convictions and acknowledged the cooperation of witnesses who provided clarity on the events. The community in Shreveport and surrounding areas responded with a combination of mourning and recognition of the danger faced by law enforcement officers in domestic contexts. Law enforcement agencies also paid tribute to Officer Payne. Departmental memorials, moments of silence, and ceremonial recognitions honored her service and acknowledged the risks associated with police work. Colleagues emphasized the professionalism, dedication, and potential that Payne exhibited during her brief tenure as an officer, noting her commitment to duty even in the face of personal danger.
Early media reporting on Payne's death focused on the immediate tragedy of a rookie officer being shot outside her home. Initial reports were limited by the availability of verified information and reflected the uncertainty surrounding the case. As the investigation progressed, local and national media outlets provided more detailed coverage, reporting on suspect identification, arrests, and the unfolding legal proceedings. The narrative evolved further as evidence emerged and public statements clarified the sequence of events. The community received updates on charges, plea agreements, and eventual convictions, which shifted public perception from shock and speculation to understanding the criminal responsibility established through judicial processes. Media coverage highlighted both the procedural rigor of the investigation and the broader implications for law enforcement safety and domestic relationship dynamics. The murder of Officer Payne brought attention to several broader issues. Domestic relationships involving law enforcement personnel were highlighted as potential risk factors in violent incidents, particularly when combined with firearms and interpersonal conflicts. The case also illustrated the importance of rigorous investigative procedures in officer-involved deaths, emphasizing forensic science, digital evidence, and witness cooperation as critical tools in achieving legal clarity. Additionally, the handling of the case demonstrated the judicial system's capacity to navigate high-profile crimes. Coordination between local law enforcement, prosecutors, and courts ensured that evidence was thoroughly reviewed and that all parties received appropriate legal consideration. The case emphasized the challenges of balancing public interest, media scrutiny, and the pursuit of justice in incidents involving law enforcement officers. Memorials and honors were established to commemorate Officer Payne. Statues, plaques, and departmental tributes acknowledged her service and preserved the memory of her commitment to law enforcement. The Shreveport Police Department and associated organizations implemented programs to recognize the risks faced by officers, particularly in domestic contexts, and to promote training and awareness aimed at preventing similar incidents. Payne's legacy also extended to the community. fostering awareness of the responsibilities and dangers inherent in police work. Her life, though brief, became a reference point for discussions on officer safety, domestic violence prevention, and legal accountability. Recognition of her service contributed to ongoing dialogues within law enforcement and civic organizations regarding the protection of personnel and the consequences of violent acts. The investigation and trial following Officer Chatéri Payne's death revealed a detailed and structured account of a tragic event. Forensic analysis, witness testimony, and digital evidence established a clear sequence of events and identified the individuals responsible for the crime. The judicial system responded with comprehensive prosecutions, appropriate sentencing, and legal resolutions that clarified accountability. The case also underscored broader implications for law enforcement and community awareness. It highlighted risks inherent in domestic relationships involving officers, the importance of meticulous investigative procedures, and the capacity of the justice system to address complex, high-profile crimes. Officer Payne's life and death serve as a lasting example of both the dangers faced by law enforcement professionals and the societal necessity of legal accountability, ensuring that her service and sacrifice are recognized and remembered. Facts verified. Case concluded. Justice is found in what remains proven. This is Sunday Crime, until the next investigation. Subscribe for more verified stories and real criminal investigations.